What happens when one of Britain's most beloved actors walks onto a morning talk show expecting a friendly chat, only to be blindsided by a host determined to humiliate him on live television? In just 34 seconds, a simple question about his latest project would spiral into the most shocking meltdown daytime TV has ever witnessed. Ending with Sean Bean doing something nobody saw coming. The morning started like any other. Sean Bean arrived at the studio early, relaxed, and ready to promote his new drama series. He had done hundreds of these interviews before. Sit down, smile, answer a few questions about the show, maybe share a funny story from set, and be done in time for lunch. Simple, easy, nothing to worry about. But from the moment Sean walked onto that set, something felt different. The usual warm welcome was nowhere to be found. Lorraine Kelly sat in her chair, arms crossed, wearing an expression that could freeze water. No smile, no friendly wave, just a cold, hard stare as Sean made his way across the studio floor. "Sean Bean! Everyone!" Lorraine announced, her voice dripping with something that definitely was not enthusiasm. The audience clapped politely, but you could feel the tension already building. Sean sat down, still smiling, still trying to keep things light and professional. "Thanks for having me, Lorraine." "Great to be here," Sean said, settling into his seat. Lorraine did not return the pleasantry. Instead, she jumped straight in with a question that caught everyone off guard. "So, Sean, your new show, another brooding northern man with a dark past. Tell me, do you ever get tired of playing the same character over and over again?" The audience went quiet. You could hear people shifting uncomfortably in their seats. This was not how these interviews usually started. Sean's smile faltered for just a moment, but he recovered quickly, trying to laugh it off. "Well, I would not say they are all the same, Lorraine. Each character has their own unique story, their own motivations. This new role is actually quite different because, is it though?" Lorraine interrupted, leaning forward with a look that could only be described as hostile. "I mean, let us be honest. You have made a career out of dying in films and playing rough men who glare at the camera. How is this any different?" Sean took a deep breath. You could see him trying to stay calm, trying to keep his composure. He had dealt with tough interviews before, but this was something else entirely. This was personal. "I think that is a bit unfair. Lorraine, I have played a wide range of characters throughout my career. From Shakespeare to fantasy to thriller, I have always tried to challenge myself as an actor." Lorraine waved her hand dismissively, as if swatting away his words like annoying flies. "Challenge yourself, please. You've been playing the same role for 30 years. Gruff voice, angry face. Die at the end. Repeat. It must be easy money, I suppose." The audience gasped. Some people looked at each other in disbelief. This was live television. This was a morning talk show. This kind of attack was not supposed to happen here. Sean's jaw tightened. His hands gripped the armrest of his chair just a little bit harder. "I take my work very seriously, Lorraine. Every role I choose means something to me. I am sorry if you do not see the depth in what I do, but millions of fans around the world disagree with you." "Fans?" Lorraine scoffed. Actually scoffed on live television. "You mean the people who watch you get killed in every film? That must be quite the legacy. Sean Bean, the actor who dies better than anyone else." Sean looked directly into Lorraine's eyes. His voice dropped lower, quieter, but somehow more powerful. "Why am I here, Lorraine? Did you invite me on your show just to insult me? Because if that is the plan, I have better things to do with my morning." "Oh, do not be so sensitive." Lorraine shot back, her voice rising. "I am just asking the questions everyone else is thinking. You come on these shows, you promote your little projects, you say the same things over and over. Honestly, it gets boring." "Boring?" Sean repeated, his voice steady, but you could hear the anger building underneath. "You think I am boring? That is rich coming from someone who has been asking the same questions for 20 years. Lorraine's face turned red. She sat up straighter in her chair, pointing her finger at Sean like a teacher scolding a child. "Excuse me, I have built a career on connecting with people, on having real conversations, something you clearly know nothing about. Hiding behind your characters all the time. Real conversations." Sean let out a short, bitter laugh. "Is that what this is? Because it feels more like an ambush to me. What happened to you, Lorraine? You used to be better than this." The crew behind the cameras did not know what to do. The producer was frantically waving, trying to signal for a commercial break. But Lorraine was not paying attention. She was locked in now, fully committed to whatever bizarre mission she had decided to undertake. What happened to me? What happened to you? You used to be an interesting actor. Now you just cash checks and play dress-up in period dramas. When was the last time you actually challenged yourself? When was the last time you did something that mattered? Sean stood up, not quickly, not dramatically at first, but slowly, deliberately. He looked down at Lorraine with a mixture of disappointment and disgust. I do not need to sit here and listen to this. I came here as a guest to talk about a project that my entire team has worked incredibly hard on. A project that actually tells an important story about real people facing real struggles. But you do not care about that, do you? You just wanted to tear someone down on live television to make yourself feel important. Sit down, Sean, Lorraine commanded, her voice sharp. We are not finished here. Oh, we are definitely finished, Sean replied. He started to unclip his microphone, his hands surprisingly steady, considering the situation. You know what the saddest part is? I used to respect you. I used to think you were one of the good ones in this industry, someone who genuinely cared about the people you interviewed, but this is just cruel. Lorraine stood up too, matching his energy, refusing to back down, even as the situation spiraled completely out of control. You do not get to walk out on me. This is my show, my set. You will sit down and finish this interview. Sean paused, the microphone now completely removed from his shirt. He looked at Lorraine with something close to pity. Your show. This is not a show anymore, Lorraine. This is a circus, and I am not going to be your performing monkey. You want to know why I keep getting work? Why people keep hiring me? Because I treat people with respect. Because I show up, do my job, and do not tear others down to make myself feel better. How dare you? Lorraine hissed, her composure completely shattered now. I've been in this industry longer than you. I have interviewed prime ministers, celebrities, royalty. I do not need lectures from an actor who cannot even keep himself alive in his own films. That was it. That was the moment. Sean placed the microphone carefully on his chair, straightened his jacket, and looked directly into the camera. To anyone watching who wanted to hear about the new series, I am sorry. It is a brilliant show with an amazing cast and crew who poured their hearts into it. Please watch it. Not for me, but for them. They deserve better than this. He turned back to Lorraine one last time. And as for you, I hope whatever you were trying to accomplish here was worth it, because you just showed everyone exactly who you really are. Sean started walking toward the exit. The camera operators did not know where to point their cameras. The audience sat in stunned silence. Some people looked like they wanted to applaud but were too shocked to move. If you walk out that door, you will never work in British television again, Lorraine shouted after him, her voice cracking with rage and desperation. I will make sure of it. Sean stopped at the edge of the stage. He did not turn around, just spoke over his shoulder, loud enough for everyone to hear. I would rather never work again than spend another second in the same room as you. And then he walked past the cameras, past the crew, past the stunned producers who were scrambling to figure out what to do. He walked out of that studio with his head held high, leaving behind the most uncomfortable silence daytime television had ever experienced. Back on set, Lorraine stood frozen, her face a mixture of anger, embarrassment, and something that might have been regret. The producer was yelling in her earpiece, telling her to go to commercial, to say something, to fix this disaster, but she just stood there staring at the empty chair where Sean had been sitting moments before. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 10 seconds, Lorraine turned to the camera. Her voice was quieter now. Shaky well? That was unexpected. We will be right back after this break. The show cut to commercials, but the damage was done. In those few minutes, everyone watching had witnessed something unprecedented. A respected actor known for being professional and kind had been pushed so far by a host's inexplicable hostility that he had no choice but to walk away. What made it even more shocking was how calm Sean had remained throughout most of the exchange. He had not screamed, he had not cursed, he had not thrown anything or made a scene. He had simply stood up for himself with dignity and walked away when it became clear that staying would only make things worse. Lorraine, on the other hand, had revealed something ugly. The mask of the friendly morning show host had slipped completely, exposing someone who seemed to take pleasure in trying to humiliate a guest for no apparent reason. Her comments were not tough questions. They were personal attacks designed to hurt and belittle. The audience did not know what to do. During the commercial break, you could hear them whispering to each other, trying to process what they had just witnessed. Some people were already pulling out their phones, no doubt preparing to share what they had seen with the rest of the world. When the show came back from commercial, Lorraine tried to continue as if nothing had happened. She introduced the next segment with a forced smile, but her hands were shaking. Her voice did not have its usual confidence. She stumbled over her words, lost her place on the teleprompter, and kept glancing at the empty chair where Sean had been sitting. The remaining guests could feel the tension. They gave shorter answers, clearly uncomfortable. The energy in the studio had completely changed. What should have been a bright, cheerful morning show felt more like a funeral. Meanwhile, somewhere outside the studio, Sean Bean was probably getting into his car, taking a deep breath, and wondering what had just happened. He had walked into that building, expecting a normal interview, and had walked out after being subjected to one of the strangest, most hostile exchanges of his career. But here's the thing about Sean Bean. Throughout that entire confrontation, he never lost his cool completely. Yes, he got angry. Yes, he defended himself. But he did it with a level of class and restraint that most people would not have been able to maintain. When Lorraine hurled insults at his career, his work, his entire legacy, he responded with measured words and then removed himself from the situation when it became clear that nothing productive would come from staying. He did not play her game. He did not sink to her level. He simply stated his case and left. That takes incredible strength. It would have been easy to match her hostility, to fire back with equal venom, to turn it into a screaming match. But Sean understood that doing so would only make things worse. So he took the high road, even as Lorraine tried desperately to drag him down to the mud with her. The way Lorraine had attacked him was particularly cruel because she went after his entire career. She did not just criticize one role or one performance. She dismissed decades of work, countless hours of dedication to his craft, the blood and sweat and tears that go into being a professional actor. She reduced his entire life's work to a punchline about dying in movies. And for what? What did she gain from this? A few minutes of confrontational television that made her look petty and mean? The temporary satisfaction of trying to hurt someone who had done nothing to deserve it. It made no sense then, and it makes no sense now. Sean had come prepared to talk about a project he believed in. He wanted to share the story behind the series, talk about working with the cast and crew, maybe tell some behind-the-scenes stories that fans would enjoy. Instead, he was met with contempt from the moment he sat down. Lorraine's opening question was not just tough or challenging. It was designed to put Sean on the defensive immediately. She wanted him to feel uncomfortable. She wanted to rattle him. And when that did not work, when Sean tried to answer professionally and redirect the conversation, she doubled down. She interrupted him, dismissed his responses, and kept pushing harder and harder. It was like watching someone pour gasoline on a fire and then act surprised when the flames got higher. Lorraine created this situation. She escalated it at every turn. And when Sean finally had enough and decided to leave, she acted as if he was the one being unreasonable. The thread she made as he walked away was particularly telling. "You will never work in British television again. That is not something you say to someone you respect. That is not even something you say to someone you are having a professional disagreement with. That is something you say when you want to hurt someone, when you want to use whatever power you think you have to punish them for not submitting to your will." But threats like that do not work on people like Sean Bean. He has been in this industry for decades. He has worked with the best directors, the biggest studios, the most talented actors in the world. One morning show host having a breakdown on live television is not going to end his career, no matter how much she might want it to. If anything, walking away probably earned him more respect than staying would have. People watching at home saw a man who knew his worth, who refused to be disrespected, and who was willing to walk away from a bad situation, even though it meant walking away from promoting his show. That takes guts. That takes integrity. Throughout the entire exchange, Sean never once promoted himself or tried to make himself look better at Lorraine's expense. When he defended his work, he also made sure to mention his cast and crew. When he spoke to the camera before leaving, he asked people to watch the show, not for him, but for everyone else who had worked on it. Even in his angriest moments, he was thinking about other people. Lorraine, meanwhile, made everything about herself, her show, her set, her authority, her feelings. She positioned herself as the victim. Even though she was clearly the aggressor, she acted as if Sean walking out was some great betrayal, when in reality, it was the only reasonable response to her inexplicable hostility. The silence that fell over the studio after Sean left spoke volumes. Nobody knew what to say. The audience did not cheer or boo. They just sat there trying to process what they had witnessed. The crew behind the cameras were frozen, unsure of what to do next. Even Lorraine herself seemed momentarily at a loss for words, which, given her decades of broadcasting experience, tells you just how far off the rails things had gone. That moment when Sean placed his microphone on the chair and spoke directly to the camera will be remembered for years. It was not dramatic in a showy way. It was not loud or flashy. It was simple, honest, and heartfelt. He apologized to the viewers, promoted the show in the most humble way possible, and wished everyone well. He turned a disaster into a moment of grace. And then his final words to Lorraine, "I hope whatever you were trying to accomplish here was worth it, because you just showed everyone exactly who you really are." That was not a threat. That was not an insult. That was just the truth. Delivered calmly and clearly. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply state the obvious and let people draw their own conclusions. When Lorraine shouted after him about ending his career, Sean could have turned around and engaged. He could have shouted back, could have defended himself further, could have turned it into an even bigger spectacle. Instead, he delivered one final line, "I would rather never work again than spend another second in the same room as you," and kept walking. That is strength. That is control. That is knowing when to speak, and when silence is more powerful than words. The image of Sean walking off that set, past all those cameras and crew members, leaving behind the chaos that Lorraine had created, is the perfect ending to this story. Because in that moment, it was clear to everyone watching who had conducted themselves with professionalism and who had not. Actions speak louder than words, and Sean's actions said everything that needed to be said. He did not need to yell or make a scene. He did not need to throw accusations or try to hurt Lorraine the way she had tried to hurt him. He simply removed himself from a toxic situation with as much dignity as possible. And in doing so, he won. Not in a petty way, but in the way that actually matters. He maintained his integrity while Lorraine lost hers. This was not a case of two people having a disagreement that got out of hand. This was one person launching an unprovoked attack, and another person defending themselves, and then removing themselves from the situation when it became clear the defense was pointless. The power dynamic, the intention behind the words.
The entire context makes it clear who was in the wrong here. Lorraine had every advantage going into this interview. It was her show, her set, her crew, her audience. She controlled the questions, the timing, everything. And she chose to use all of that power to try to tear down someone who showed up in good faith. That says everything about her character, and nothing about Sean's. The fact that Sean managed to turn it around, to take back some control, by choosing to leave, rather than continue to subject himself to abuse, is remarkable. Most people in that situation would feel trapped. The cameras are rolling. The audience is watching. There is pressure to just endure it and get through it. But Sean recognized that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to participate in your own humiliation. By walking out, he sent a message not just to Lorraine, but to everyone watching. You do not have to accept disrespect. You do not have to sit there and take it when someone is treating you poorly. It does not matter how big their platform is, or how much power they think they have. You always have the power to walk away. And that is exactly what Sean Bean did. On that unforgettable mornings, he walked away from the hostility, the insults, the bizarre confrontation that never should have happened in the first place. He walked away with his head held high and his dignity intact, leaving behind a host who had revealed her true colors and a studio full of people who had just witnessed something they would never forget. Head